Above all else, subsequent to scrutinizing the way of thinking of religion and God, we will begin to censure the errors in the actual book. After I have enlightened you concerning my own thoughts and my thought process, I will attempt to convey our principal point as just and obviously as I can. Initial, one can't live with a short-sighted faith that causes it to seem like God made us, sent us into the world, records great and terrible scores for the things we do, and causes it to seem like he needs to rebuff us in light of the things we do with our choice. Since how could such qualities as holding feelings of resentment, getting payback, harming, what man calls underhanded and flawed, befit a divine being brimming with endless leniency and flawlessness? How might a limitlessly tolerant God detain his very own animal creation in everlasting torture? On the off chance that an individual did this to a creature that peace itself, how might you check it out? I figure you ought to consider the connection among yourself and God by secluding them from human ideas. In this article, we will discuss God's character, refrains, and things in the Torah. At the end of the day, this article will be pointed generally at Jews and Christians, since when a Muslim individual ganders at the stanzas he will understand here, a changed book, what might it be? He will think, this multitude of killing requests in the Torah, brutally marked regulations, and, surprisingly, God's true swindling in many spots present a model of a divine being without benevolence, heartless and persecuting the Jews. Despite the fact that I won't go into the sections about killing, pretty much this article will show you something. The God you will find in this article won't appear to be a predictable God by any means. That is the reason the Holy Book, which came later as a continuation of the Torah, offers us a more positive model of God. It doesn't make any difference regardless of whether the good book has been altered. All things considered, they don't call it the Hebrew Scriptures' new confirmation in vain. The book of Scriptures filled in as a development book that God shipped off similar individuals, in spite of the fact that its creativity is far from being obviously true. When you analyze the books, you will see two distinct makers. As a matter of fact, with the good book, the idea of misery has gone into conviction on the grounds that such a spot isn't referenced in past books. Religion used to be an exceptionally strong weapon that was essential for systematization and was utilized to control individuals previously. This is genuine, since religion is the start of science. Notwithstanding, as certain individuals add to it for individual advantage, the lessons start to decline. These soul-alleviating lies, imagined to lay out power over individuals, started to be utilized so as to urge individuals to battle, subjugate, and sedate them. I'm not saying that all religions came for this reason, yet that is the way it was by and large. I don't engage in the heavenly piece of the matter. There are devotees and non-adherents. In any case, at this stage, certain individuals need to awaken. At the end of the day, whether the religion you have faith in comes from God or man, in the event that he began to utilize and mishandle you, if sooner or later the agents of this religion began to add untruths or disconnected lessons, then you really want to follow through with something. Indeed, this time, how would you think these men answer the people who go against them like this? You are a heathen. Thus they throw out the agitators. For this, probe courts can be laid out, witch chases can be made, jihad can be made, psychological oppressor associations can be laid out, and so on. As indicated by its age, each religion is threatened. In any case, I'm certain this sort of portrayal won't influence individuals who put stock in certain customs and stories. At the point when you're brought up for certain accounts remembered by practically all societies, the hardest thing isn't to break the chains, however to track down the inclination to break them. Then, at that point, the easiest thing to do is this. Possibly you will give him proof that you can say this isn't unique about the narratives your book tells, or you will just present the inconsistencies inside the actual book. One more issue to know about is this: the men displayed as prophets in the Torah. Since a portion of these men are sufficiently able to get what they say and assemble a huge number of individuals behind them, so they're not exactly respectable folks. Why? There are killers, philanderers, fraudsters among them. There is a child. For instance, the man you call David is an adulteress. In the letter that his fighter named Uriah banished to have his significant other named Shower Sheva, sent that trooper to pass on in the most terrible locale and sent him to move him, this warrior makes certain to kill him as a plotter. Since David saw that warrior's better half strolling on the patio one day and preferred it without question, he needed to have it called, and he had the option to do this since he was the Lord. Then, at that point, by disposing of her better half, she needed to have this lady easily and issue free at whatever point she needed. The lady will be bereft, and David will actually want to face without tattle. You can peruse this in more detail in the Torah. I have given the vital refrain segment. The man you call Moses is a killer. This issue is talked about exhaustively in the mass migration segment of the Torah. He sees an Egyptian battling with a Hebrew and pounds the life out of him. Then, at that point, he begins to frantically get away altogether not to be rebuffed, and around then he meets God. I draw your consideration. The two people referenced are not perfect people. In any case, for reasons unknown, the two of them emerge from God's picked individuals and become prophets. since as per God in the Torah, it doesn't make any difference in the event that you're an attacker, killer, or shameless. It is sufficient assuming you come from that ancestry. It's entertaining that God picked a group or something, or whatever. I will not go into that. Regardless, things like God's picking a country for himself, making them predominant, favoring them, and the way that the prophets were just slipped from a specific genealogy totally show that a race of that period attempted to bring a custom they laid out based on blessing itself and its advantages to the current day, and they prevailed with regards to doing as such. So to see, accordingly, it is easy to track down inconsistencies in this book or to find the Jewish misleading publicity in it. However long you read it, you will see that there isn't a lot happening in this book. I couldn't say whether it was sacred or not previously. In the event that it was really God's assertion and changed, best of luck to the folks. They transformed it well. All in all, presently I see better why Allah talks such a great amount to the Jews in the Quran. It is typical that these folks, who change religion such a great amount as per themselves and show themselves as the anointed ones, become a prevailing association in the public eye by taking care of from many sources and making governmental issues. It will bring forth reformers like Jesus. I will likewise alter a different article about Jesus. Until further notice, I'm tuning in, yet I will partake in discrete articles connected with our subject. I have proactively shared a significant number of them. I will add it toward the finish of the article. What did we say? Jesus. Jesus is a progressive individual who comes to the Jews by censuring them. For Christians, he is the manifestation of God. For Muslims, he is a prophet of God and a legend who turned into a symbol after he was killed by Jewish strict pioneers in Rome following 3 years of administration. Whether this is a genuine story or a manufacture, we can't be aware without a doubt, yet we really do realize that there have been many reports of Jesus recorded, both by Rome and by artists and journalists abroad. So it is sure that there was a man whose name was Issa and was executed there. However, they couldn't conclude whether he was actually a prophet or an entertainer. Which one to acknowledge really depends on you. As you most likely are aware, the Jews actually don't acknowledge Jesus and are sitting tight for a become the courier lord of the Jews. That is the reason Sabbateism association that grew in the Ottoman domain in Sabbatai Sevi, who pronounced himself a prophet, became famous along these lines. This idea of the approaching Savior is reflected in Islam as the Mahdi. Jesus, who came and taught goodness and was killed on the cross, made a ton of commotion in his time, so that, later, individuals would have rather not gotten back to Judaism. It was perceived that this religion was obviously a religion that inclined toward the Jews, and the destitute individuals lost their confidence in this religion as a result of the fake rabbis in the decision class. All in all, the Christians. Consequently, the domain that executed Jesus guaranteed a solidarity by utilizing the lessons of Jesus and showed this obviously by framing the Crusader Association and its knights years after the fact. So as per what I figured out, read and took in, Jesus' just concern was to reestablish Judaism, which had come and was defiled. It was not to imagine a pristine religion, but rather to return to the first religion. That is the reason all he did was look child. This is off base. He took on an educator job like aha, do it like this and afterward you realize what occurs straight away. In any case, this man had 12 devotees, and these understudies recorded things like Jesus did this. That's what he did, recording what they recollected years after the fact, and they all turned into a different book of scriptures book. Aside from these understudies, there were likewise stories of good news like the good news of Barnabas, the good news of Mary, and the good news of Thomas, yet at the Inzik Committee held in the 325th year, the strict authorities there reached a decision about which books ought to be taken out and which ought to be left, and whether Jesus is a prophet or a divine being. Meanwhile, numerous books of scriptures were singed and annihilated. They even added and deducted many pieces of the Torah. I have arranged one more article about it. I will give the connection soon. Thus, another religion arose out of the hands of Rome, and it was called Christianity. And Christianity, they dedicated an enormous piece of this altered gospel to the letters and understandings of a man named Paul, who was initially an enemy of Christ and later turned into a Christian after a fantasy. Meanwhile, they made the good book by consolidating the altered Torah, which was stacked with a terrible God profile, with the good book, which was changed however this time stacked with a superior God profile. Paul, who began to spread the religion by proclaiming himself the courier, began to present Jesus as God and himself as the courier of God Jesus, since he was unable to pronounce himself a courier of a messenger. Among the in excess of 20 books extricated from the Torah, the most significant was the book of the prophet Enoch. This book was uncovered somewhat recently as the Dead Ocean parchments or the Qumran engravings. During the archaeological unearthings, many secret appearances of the unauthenticated written work Torah were uncovered. This book was for the most part about Nephi's half-holy messenger, half-human. At the end of the day, children of God and Noah's flood. What's more, this is the book that generally specifies the names of heavenly messengers and Satan, and offers fascinating data about the prophet Adam and Eve. For the individuals who are interested about my connected article, see The Secret Book of the Prophet Enoch. To peruse a verifiable article about Noah's flood, I have clarified for you in one more article in which clans this legend occurred on the planet and the way things were known. That article is additionally this article. Here you go. An exploration connected with Noah's flood. With respect to this new benevolent God and lessons of Christianity, I think it is on the grounds that the Jews, who have been clutching the "we are unique, not you" disposition for quite a while, are to diminish the impact of the Jews and to keep individuals from griping a bit and to offer a more reliable God. A significant number of these great lessons have a place with somebody who has resided quite a while in the past. Who? Buddha. For the people who see Jesus as the hero, one ought to inquire, was Buddha likewise a prophet, or was Jesus motivated by Buddha? Since what God couldn't do and couldn't imagine for quite a long time, even a man in an extremely far-off place did it in time. However, on the off chance that you tell this to Christians, they will protest you on the grounds that, as per them, their books are totally unique. In any case, regardless of how great lessons it has, all things considered, Christianity is a human-made religion. It should have the option to take advantage of individuals to make do, as different religions do. For instance, saying trust regardless of anything else and placing them into sheep, forestalling thinking, disallowing analysis, and so on. We see this in numerous religions. At the point when the streets are impeded, when the individual is in uncertainty, when the logical inconsistencies are gotten, immediately, we stand by. On the off chance that you don't have confidence, it will end severely, and individuals and afterwards social orders are attempted to be quelled. In the first place, they compromise the individual with the great beyond. However, it didn't work. The man turned into a skeptic or something, banned, execution. The justification for this is mass control, keeping up with predominance in the public eye. That is the very thing individuals do, as well. To depend on a will more significant than oneself, to live taken care of, to agree with a touch of terrorizing. This is extremely consoling for straightforward individuals. For the individuals who are marginally better than them, it is the ideal weapon. It is the image of God picking a solitary group and making them better than all, and afterward beginning to take care of individuals. In the event that you accept, you will be prevalent as well. Indeed, even the refrains about Jacob wrestling and overcoming God can show the degree to which a sacred writing is revered that commends the Jewish race. Regardless of whether you acknowledge them, regardless of whether you can make up a cover, there are many pieces of the book that go against itself. Goodness, what are these inconsistencies? Show restraint. It's nearly time to come to those logical inconsistencies, since they have arranged such a book that any place you hold it, it stays in your grasp. As such, trusting in this book, accepting and living without addressing is an affront to God. I figure it would be discourteous to this boundless will to get the maker into such little models, to make a restricted God with a restricted knowledge.